This was an unexpected Christmas gift that Russia didn't want. At 11:59 p.m. on Christmas Eve, a 2,000-pound Long Neptune missile is screaming across the Black Sea at 550 miles per hour, flying just 30 feet above the salt spray. Its target, the heart of Russia's naval drone storage facility in Myern, Crimea. If this upgraded Ghost missile hits its mark, Russia's entire maritime strategy for 2026 goes up in a significant thermal event. If it misses, Ukraine just lost its most sophisticated domestic asset. The margin for error is exactly 0. Time to impact 12 seconds. However, this story actually began 3 hours earlier with a very clever game of bait and switch. Myern isn't just a base. It's the nerve center for Russia's entire naval drone fleet, the Amazon distribution hub for Moscow's 2026 maritime strategy. They were tucked behind a billion-dollar iron umbrella. We're talking S-400 Triumph batteries, Pantsir-S2 point defense, and podlit radars that can spot a bird-sized target from 250 miles away. Add in the Krasuka-4 electronic warfare system designed to turn every GPS signal into digital soup, and you have a no-fly, no-swim zone that looked impenetrable on every Russian computer screen. They were ready for a heavyweight boxing match, but folks, the Ukrainians weren't coming for a fight. They were coming to perform a digital vanishing act. The stage was set, the decoys were already moving, and Russia's billion-dollar brain was about to get so overloaded it wouldn't know whether to shoot or pray. The first wave was just seconds away. 9 p.m. The calm before the storm. 4 Leleka 100s are whispering across the Black Sea, hugging the salt spray at just 150 feet. These are the opening act, a few pieces of carbon fiber and clever code meant to poke the bear. On the Russian side, the Podlet K1 radar, their ultra-sensitive eye for low-altitude threats, gets a nibble on its screen. It's not a clean contact, it's a shimmering ghost like a smudge on your TV you can't quite wipe off. The Russian operators at Myern are pros. They don't panic. They follow the manual to a T. The system logic identifies these smudges as low-speed intruders. Track lock achieved. Suddenly, the quiet night is torn apart as 2 Pantsir-S2 units roar to life. 2 57E6 missiles streak into the sky, accelerating to Mach 2.4. The first Leleka doesn't stand a chance. It's neutralized in a brilliant thermal flash that lights up the coastline. In the bunkers, the Russians are high-fiving. They've just swatted a pesky fly. However, the second Leleka is a bit more stubborn. It enters a pre-programmed jink maneuver, diving toward the waves to hide in the sea clutter. The Pantsir operator, frustrated by the flickering signal switches to the 30mm twin-barrel autocannons. A wall of lead, 950 rounds per minute, shreds the air. A tungsten fragment clips the drone's wing and it tumbles into the surf. That's 2 down. Right as the Russians think they've cleared the sky, the third Leleka does something truly rude. It intentionally gains altitude, popping up like a jack-in-the-box to 500 feet. It's a sacrificial move, but it's brilliant. Every search radar from Sevastopol to Myern locks onto it. Another SAM screams off the rail and obliterates it instantly. But folks, here is the magic trick in this performance. While the Russian defense network was busy expending expensive ammunition and high-fiving over 3 plastic decoys, the fourth Leleka, the silent witness, was creeping through the shadows at 50 feet. It wasn't looking for a fight. It was sniffing. Its onboard sensors were recording every radar frequency, mapping every active Pantsir position that had just been forced to reveal itself, and feeding that data back to the Ukrainian command center via encrypted links. It's like a burglar throwing 3 rocks at different windows just to see where the security guards are standing. Russia thought they were winning a dogfight. In reality, they were handing over the digital keys to their entire front door. By the time the fourth Leleka finally ran out of battery and glided into the sea, the mission was already a success. The birds had mapped the minefield and identified every hotspot in the Russian defense. Now it was time to see how the Dnipro fleet would handle a threat they couldn't see on a radar screen. 11:30 p.m. While they're staring at their radar screens looking for more birds, they completely miss the sharks already slicing through the surf. And it's time for Magura V5 Wolfpack. These Maguras are 18 feet of sleek, low-profile fury sitting so low in the water that to a billion-dollar radar they look like nothing more than a patch of sea clutter or an aggressive whitecap. But as they hit the 3-mile mark from the harbor, a Russian Raptor-class patrol boat catches a break. Their high-definition thermal optronics pick up a wake that shouldn't be there. Suddenly, the night erupts. The Raptor's heavy machine guns start chewing up the dark water tracers, bouncing off the waves like angry fireflies. The lead Magura pilot operating via encrypted Starlink doesn't retreat. He does something much bolder. He guns the engine to 42 knots and charges the Raptor head-on. It's a terrifying game of chicken. At the last second, the lead Magura swerves, drawing the Raptor's fire into a wild, high-speed chase away from the harbor entrance. While the Raptor is busy playing cat and mouse, the other two Maguras slip past the outer buoy. A frantic radio report from the patrol boat hits the MERN command center. Surface targets in the inner perimeter emergency. This is the fatal pivot, folks. Inside the base, the Russian tactical brain experiences a total system shock. They've been trained to expect a coordinated air and sea attack, and now they think the Maguras are the main event. The MERN commander makes a split-second decision. He orders the coastal Pantsir-S2 units to rotate their turrets downward. Their search radars, which were previously scanning the horizon for cruise missiles, are now tilted toward the water hunting for 18-foot plastic boats. The two surviving Maguras are now weaving through the floating boom defenses, creating a chaotic S-turn dance that forces every coastal battery and searchlight to focus on the harbor floor. On the Russian screens, the surface threat is now priority number one. They are dumping everything they have, autocannons, flares, small arms fire, trying to neutralize these two nimble ghosts before they hit the pier. But just as the coastal defenders think they have the rhythm of the chase, the Maguras pull a Matryoshka doll move that catches everyone off guard. The hatches on the back of the Maguras slide open, and suddenly, 8 quadcopter drones, 4 from each boat, buzz into the air like a swarm of angry hornets. Inside the MERN command center, the operators see the thermal spikes on their monitors and think, "Aha! We've seen this playbook before." They assume this is the mothership tactic, using the boats to launch FPV strikes on the fuel tanks. They go into a full focus fire frenzy. The Pantsir-S2 units tilt their 30mm twin cannons down to the horizontal, pumping out a literal wall of lead over 1,900 rounds per minute, shredding the air above the water. It's an absolute light show, but for the Russian operators, it's the most stressful 4D video game they've ever played. The Pantsir-S2 units don't just fire. They unleash a 2 to 500 round per minute blizzard of steel from their 2 A38M twin-barrel cannons. These 30mm guns create a curtain of lead so thick it looks like liquid fire stretching across the harbor. The first 3 quadcopters are pulverized instantly, caught in a crossfire of high-explosive incendiary rounds that turn them into tiny flickering orange sparks. The 5th and 6th drones try a desperate high-G corkscrew maneuver, but the Pantsir's radar-guided fire control is relentless. It calculates their flight path 10 times per second, leading the targets with mathematical cruelty. The quadcopters aren't just hit, they are literally erased from the air. Down on the water, the 2 mothership Maguras are doing a high-speed zigzagging between the spray of heavy machine gun fire coming from the shore. But they've run out of room. A lucky burst of 14.5mm rounds from a coastal nest stitches a line of fire across the lead Magura's hull, punching through the composite shell and triggering a significant thermal event that sends a shockwave vibrating through the harbor floor. Miles out at sea, the drama reaches its peak. The Raptor patrol boat, which has been chasing the lead Decoy Magura for 20 minutes, finally pins it in its searchlights. The Raptor's stabilized remote weapon station opens up, shredding the Magura's engine compartment. The drone comes to a dead stop before vanishing in a massive, brilliant fireball that reflects off the dark waves like a miniature sun. By 11:50 p.m., the Russian operators are exhausted but cheering. They've successfully neutralized 4 Lelekas, 3 Maguras, and 8 quadcopters. On their screens, the threat count has dropped back to 0. They are so busy high-fiving and updating their kill count reports that they've developed total fatal tunnel vision. But folks, here is the lethal error. By tilting the entire iron umbrella down to crush the sharks, and by using every searchlight and radar to scan the harbor floor, the Russians accidentally left the attic window wide open. Their high-altitude search radars were suffering from ground clutter interference, and their digital brains were so occupied with the surface chaos that they completely missed the quiet subsonic hum coming from the horizon. They thought they had cleared the stage. They had no idea the Maguras and the quadcopters were just the loud, flashy stagehands. The real ghost, the 2,000-pound Long Neptune, had used those 15 minutes of chaos to slip past the outer radar ring at 550 miles per hour. It was flying just 30 feet above the salt spray, its upgraded Tercom system using the sea's surface like a private highway. The door wasn't just open. Russia had practically invited the ghost in for dinner. The last wave was no longer a threat, it was an inevitability. You see, folks, the Long Neptune isn't just a missile, it's a 2,000-pound digital surgeon with a long memory. And its brain was filled with the data transmitted by that fourth Laleika, our silent witness from the first wave. That little scout drone had mapped every active frequency and every hidden SAM position. The Long Neptune wasn't just flying a straight line, it was weaving through the Russian defense network like a Pro Bowl quarterback. It knew exactly where the blind spots in the S-400's radar were, and it was using the Crimean topography as a shield. At 11:57 p.m., a frantic beep-beep erupts inside the MERN command center. The lead crew stares at his screen, his jaw dropping as a massive high-speed contact blooms out of nowhere. Target inbound bearing 190, low altitude fast. The frantic Iron Umbrella tries to pivot back up. The Pantsir-S2 units, still cooling their barrels from the Magura fight, frantically try to slew their turrets around. But folks, this is where the math gets cruel. A 550-mile-per-hour missile covers a mile in about 6 seconds. By the time the Russian computer could even calculate a track lock, the Neptune was already passing the harbor's outer buoy. One Russian operator manages to squeeze off a desperate burst of 30mm fire, but the Neptune's upgraded AI executes a sudden 4G terminal maneuver, a pop-up and dive. It's a graceful, deadly zigzag that leaves the Russian tracers hitting nothing but salt air. Inside the facility, the air seems to vibrate. The Russian drone operators on the ground look up, hearing that terrifying low-frequency roar, the sound of 2,000 pounds of kinetic energy coming to collect a debt. They have exactly 3 seconds to realize their impenetrable fortress was just a paper house. The Neptune's onboard camera locks onto Building 2, the central assembly hub. This is it. The 12-second countdown from the beginning of our story hits 0. The impact isn't just an explosion. It's a masterclass in high-velocity physics. The 770-pound warhead uses the Monroe effect, a shape-charged jet that focuses the blast into a needle of molten copper. At 7,000 meters per second, that jet slices through the facility's reinforced steel roof like a hot wire through a stick of butter. But it's the secondary thermal event that really changes the map. Inside Building 2 were dozens of fully fueled and armed unmanned vessels. When Neptune's warhead contacted that warehouse of gunpowder, it triggered a chain reaction that turned the entire $100 million facility into a dazzling white-hot volcano. By 0:05 a.m. on Christmas Day, the MERN naval base didn't exist as a functional unit anymore. It was structurally compromised on a catastrophic level. The Iron Umbrella had been folded, and the Russian maritime strategy for 2026 was currently drifting into the Crimean sky as a cloud of black smoke. The hunters had officially become the hunted, and folks, the Black Sea just got a whole lot smaller for the Kremlin. Let's look at the physical fallout. Building 2. The logistics heart of Moscow's maritime drone program is now officially a $100 million pile of slag. We're talking about dozens of high-tech unmanned vessels and precision maintenance equipment being subjected to a significant thermal event that left the entire facility structurally compromised. But this strike didn't just break a building, it shattered a supply chain. MERN was the Amazon distribution center for the 2026 maritime offensive. Without this hub, the Russian drone fleet is effectively grounded. You simply cannot run a high-tech naval campaign out of the back of a van. By neutralizing this single point of failure, Ukraine has managed to freeze Russia's maritime momentum for months. Then there's the narrative. For over a year, Moscow has been telling everyone that Crimea was an impenetrable fortress, a place where its high-end tech created a no-fly, no-swim zone. Well, folks, that Iron Umbrella just got folded by a single ghost missile because the defense operators got distracted by a few hobby drones. The myth of the invincible defense hasn't just been questioned, it has been structurally compromised on a global stage. And that leads to the ultimate strategic headache for the Kremlin. They now face a choice they absolutely hate. Do they keep their best air defense systems at the front to protect their ground units, or do they pull them back to protect their safe backyard? Every Pantsir moved to Crimea to stop the next ghost is a new opening for Ukraine on the main battlefield. Now let's do some asymmetric warfare math. You take $8,000 in modified hobby drones, a few $10,000 Sea Sharks, and one upgraded Long Neptune total cost maybe a couple of $1 million. You trade that for a $100 million facility, tens of millions in drone inventory, and the total paralysis of a maritime strategy. Even the sharkiest hedge fund manager on Wall Street would sell his soul for a return on investment like that. This was a 30,000% win for the guys playing 4D chess with a budget. Ukraine didn't win this with brute force. They won it with a 3-act masterclass in digital deception. They proved that in modern warfare, a clever plan beats a big checkbook every single time. So I've got to ask you guys, if you were the commander sitting in a bunker on Christmas morning, staring at a smoking hole where your drone fleet used to be, what's your next move? Do you pull more gear from the front lines and leave your army exposed? Or do you just keep crossing your fingers and hoping the next ghost doesn't have your name on it? Let me know your tactical take in the comments below. I love seeing how you guys break down these maneuvers. If you enjoyed looking at how a paper fortress gets folded, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who still thinks an iron umbrella is enough to stop a ghost. See you in the next one.